Welcome back. We're moving into section 6 of your CDL driver's manual. Should be located on page 6-1. This section is going to cover combination vehicles. We've covered general knowledge, and that is the biggest portion of your 3 tests that you have to take. General knowledge is a 50-question test. Air brakes, I can't remember if it's 20 or 25 questions for air brakes, and then again probably 20, 25 questions for combination vehicles. Everything builds off of the general knowledge. If you were with us during the air brake general knowledge, then come into air brakes, we got a lot of redundancy built in there, covering some of the same things we did in general knowledge. So it gets a little bit easier as we go along. What we're doing in combination vehicles, we're adding a trailer and the dynamics of pulling a trailer and different types of trailers. So if I was just getting a Class B, I wouldn't need this section. If I was getting a bus, I wouldn't need this section. But we're adding a trailer, so we're going to cover this. And once you get a Class A CDL, it's Class A is the top license, Class B, Class C, then your normal driver's license. So let's get into section 6 here, combination vehicle. This section is going to cover driving combinations. Combination vehicle air brakes. So you're going to hear more about air brakes again. You're going to hear more about stab braking again. We're going to go into more about skid control again, which we covered in general knowledge. We covered in air brakes. We're going to cover it again here too. Coupling and uncoupling procedures. It's a lot of stuff that goes into coupling and uncoupling. So I'm going to go over the stuff that I know is going to be on the test. If there's something that's different when you take your test and you find a different question that you didn't know the answer to or I didn't cover, it's all in the book here if you read the entire book. I'm just trying to highlight the things that I know is on the test. Send me a message. Let me know that it's in there. That's on the test that in your state or wherever you're at. We can add it to what we're doing here, and it's going to help everybody out down the road. Make sure you come and subscribe, watch our videos, share it with your friends, especially if they're trying to get a permit, and let us know if it's helpful. This is the same style of classes that I give in a classroom environment, but you're getting me one-on-one. The biggest difference is we don't have the opportunity, because we're not doing it live, for you guys to ask me questions. But feedback is appreciated. I hope this class is going to be informational for you. It's going to help us. It's going to help our sponsors. It's going to help our students come to class. And if you go to another school, it's going to help them. Mainly it's going to help you, and that's what I care more about than I do that. And then we're going to do inspecting combinations. So driving combinations, combination vehicle air brakes, anti-lock braking systems, coupling and uncoupling, inspecting combinations. This section provides information needed to pass the test for combination vehicles. Tractor, trailer, doubles, triples, street truck with a trailer, right? The information is only to give you the minimum knowledge needed for driving combination vehicles. You should also study section 7 if you need to pass the test for doubles or triples. I'm not going to cover that right now. That's going to be an endorsement, but we can talk a little bit about it as we go along, because again, doubles and triples is just going to build off of this. And if you go look at that section, it's only 2.5 pages long. It has a lot to do with converter dollies and coupling and uncoupling those, and the wiggle, a crack to whip effect that goes along with those doubles and triples. I don't even know if you need a class for that, because it builds off of everything we've already done. So section 6.1, driving combination vehicles. The key to this is combination vehicles are usually heavier, longer, and require more driving skill than a single commercial vehicle. I'm highlighting it, so this may be a phrase you're going to see again when you take your test. Why do you need to do this? Does it require yes, it requires more skill than a single commercial vehicle. That means that drivers of combination vehicles need more knowledge and skill than drivers of single vehicles. In this section, we talk about some important safety factors that apply specifically to combination vehicles. This is not specific to combination vehicles. Rollover risk, when you're talking about commercial vehicles with a high center of gravity, there is a rollover risk. There's a bigger rollover risk with combination vehicles. The more trailers you add to it, the more risk it becomes. The more axles, the less axles touching the ground versus more axles touching the ground, the bigger footprint on the ground, the rollover risk changes. And we'll look at the diagram in a few minutes talking about rearward amplification, how the crack to whip effect and everything is magnified from whatever I do here is amplified to the rear of my trailer, causing bigger movement. So you got to be steer gentle, brake gentle, accelerate gentle. Gentle is the key. Smooth and easy. That's a professional driver. More than half of truck driver deaths. More than half of truck driver deaths and crashes are the result of truck rollovers. Hands-free device, talking on cell phones and stuff, it's closing in on that tally. There is a lot with hands-free devices or your handhelds and your phones, distracted driving. That is a huge cause of death. Before, rollovers were the biggest cause, and like I said, the distracted driving is coming in a close second right now. When more cargo is piled up in a truck, the center of gravity, understand what that means, moves higher up from the road. The truck becomes easier to turn over. Fully loaded rigs are 10 times more likely to roll over in a crash than empty rigs. I'm going to talk about this statement in just a second. Yeah, it makes sense. There's more weight, higher center of gravity, more momentum moving you left and right to cause rollovers. Don't confuse this statement with stopping. It is harder to stop an empty or lightly loaded rig than it is a fully loaded rig. This one's saying fully loaded rigs are 10 times, might be the number you want to remember, fully loaded rigs are 10 times more likely to roll over. Now we're talking about rollovers, not stopping. So don't confuse those two statements. With all these information and facts that they give you out here, it's so easy to get confused. That's the reason I'm highlighting and letting you know the differences. The following two things will help you prevent rollover. Keep the cargo as close to the ground as possible. So keep it close to the deck if you have a possibility to do that. You don't want to put everything up and go tall with it. The taller it is, the more center of gravity changes, the more rollover risk occurs. And drive slowly around turns. You don't want to go around fast because where's that momentum going to go, right? You're slinging everything there. And those dynamics change when we talk about some of those other dynamic loads like we talked about in general knowledge. Hanging meat, swinging meat they call it. That's when beef is chained up in the middle of a trailer and it swings back and forth. Bulk containers that haul things like sand and grain. You take a turn too fast, it shifts the cargo. Tanker vehicles shift cargoes. Dynamic loads like that. Things tall, high center of gravity is going to shift the dynamics of that. So you got to be gentle when you're steering, braking, and accelerating. Also keep the load centered on your rig. If the load is to one side, left or right side, so you want it centered down the middle of your deck. If it's on one side, so it makes the trailer lean. So the trailer could be leaning, that's promoting rollover to begin with. Just by loading it, you're promoting the rollover because you didn't load it in a way that's going to be balanced and spread out as much as possible. Cargo distribution is covered in section 3 of this manual. We covered that in general knowledge under transporting cargo. I added that to the general knowledge because it's in section 3 and it's part of it. You need that. Keep it centered, keep it in the middle. You don't want it leaning. You can go back and look at that if you need to. And again, if you just want to pull out your manual, go back to section 3, pause this video, go back to section 3, read it. This is the Minnesota CDL Driver's Manual. You can download it PDF. So I'm in Texas. If you get past the first section of that book, all of these books are going to be the same, whether it's Texas, whether it's Alaska, whether it's North Dakota. There's a few differences. Not few, there's only one that I've really noticed, and that's when using your high beams and your low beams. In Minnesota, the low beams on oncoming traffic were required to dim within 1,000 feet. For coming up behind another vehicle, we need to dim our headlights within 200 feet. In North Dakota, it's 500 feet oncoming traffic, 300 feet coming in behind. So that's the biggest difference I've seen in these manuals. If you find something different, hey, please let us know. I'm curious to know myself. I haven't seen all 50 of them. Rollovers happen when you turn too fast. Drive slowly around corners, on ramps, and off ramps. Avoid quick lane changes, especially when fully loaded. Come back up to the top over here, 6.1.2. Steer gently. Trucks with trailers have a dangerous crack the whip effect. We need to know what that is. Okay? When you make a quick lane change, or the crack the whip effect can turn the trailer over. There are many crashes or only the trailer has overturned. Rearward amplification causes the crack-to-whip effect. Figure 6.1 shows 8 types of combination vehicles and rearward amplification. Each has in a quick lane change. So that means we turn that wheel real quick, right? Too much momentum. Physics is not working in your favor when you do that. Rigs with the least crack-to-whip effect are shown at the top and those with the most at the bottom. Rearward amplification of 2.0 in the chart means that the rear trailer is twice as likely to turn over as the tractor. You can see that triples have a rearward amplification of 3.5. This means you can roll over the last trailer of triples 3.5 times as easily as a 5-axle tractor. So before I read the next chapter, let's come down here to the chart and see what they're talking about. And I want to point out some things. So if they give you a diagram of which one of these is more likely to roll over, they may. I've seen those types of questions. So you have this long trailer here, but this short trailer is shorter. This one's going to roll over quicker than this one. Why? Count the axles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. The reason this one's going to roll over quicker, the second one there, that 3-axle trailer, is because it doesn't have a big enough footprint. We have more tires touching the ground than this one, so it has a better base. Do the same thing with this long set of doubles. So you got 45-foot double trailers. But this shorter one's going to roll over quicker. Again, let's count the axles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 axles. That means, and that those are double tires or super single tires, you have a bigger footprint on the ground holding you to the ground. Let's look at this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one has 4 more axles than this one. That's why this one has a higher rollover risk. It don't have a big enough footprint. Rocky Mountain double, that's when you mix up the size of the trailers. You may have a 28-foot trailer and a 45 here. Again, count the axles. That's 3, 5, 6, 7. This one only has 1 axle per here. That's a bigger rollover risk than these, right? Then this California truck. This California truck is going to roll over quicker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the footprint, right? And this is a pintle hook versus a fifth wheel and pintle. So this articulates here. This one articulates here. So that rearward amplification, and it's only got 2 axles holding it to the ground, that one's going to roll over. So you get the idea of the hows and the whys. So if you get, they say which one is going to roll over, and they give you a picture of each one, count the axles. And that'll give you a good idea how to answer that question. So come back and finish your chapter up here. So we finished this with the 3.5 times as easily as a 5-axle tractor. Steer gently and smoothly. Don't jerk the wheel. This is not smooth when you're, even if you're making small increments, it's still not smooth. Smooth push as you go. Release gently, right? Steer gently and smoothly when you are pulling trailers. If you make a sudden movement with your steering wheel, your trailer could tip over. Follow enough behind other vehicles, at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle. We covered that in general knowledge. What is your following distance? You have to know the distance, the length of your vehicle. So 1 second for each 10 feet. Let's say you have a 60-foot vehicle, and 1 second for each 10 feet. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. That's going to be 6 seconds of following distance. And if you're driving over 40 miles per hour, you add 1 more second. I'm driving 70. That's over 40, so add 1 more second. You don't add 10 more seconds just because you're doing 70. It's over 40, you add a second. Because we're assuming that everybody else is out there driving at the same speed, or they should be, right? That's the safest speed to travel, is the speed of other vehicles. If everybody's speeding, don't speed with them. Follow far enough behind other vehicles, at least 1 second for each 10 feet of your vehicle length, plus another second if you're going over 40. Now, we've done this in general knowledge, but if this is your first time seeing that, let's go ahead and highlight this for you, because that's going to be a question probably in general knowledge and in combination. So you'll see this question more than once on multiple tests. Look far enough down the road to avoid being surprised and having to make sudden lane changes. At night, drive slowly enough to see obstacles with your headlights before it's too late to change lanes or stop gently. Slow down to a safe speed before going into a turn. How do we come into a big turn? Slow down before, downshift prior, get halfway through the turn, and then gently start accelerating when you're halfway through the turn. Stay to the high side of your turn. Talking about driving at night, the big thing you want to remember there is don't outrun your headlights, meaning wherever the end of my headlights are shining, whether I'm high beam or low beam, I should be going at a speed to where I can stop the vehicle within that distance. If I dim my headlights, I should slow down because my visibility changes. So don't overrun your headlights. Brake early, 6.1.3, brake early. Control your speed whether fully loaded or empty. Large combination vehicles take longer to stop when they are empty. We heard that in general knowledge, and now we're hearing it again in combination vehicles. So you should know the answer. They're going to give you that question. Which vehicle is harder to stop? It's harder to stop a lightly loaded vehicle because it's not loaded. These vehicles are designed to have a load on it. That load pushes the tires to the ground, giving you more traction. You can push the brakes harder without them locking up. If you're empty, the truck doesn't know that you're empty. It doesn't know that you're lightly loaded, but it does know that it can stop 80,000 pounds. It's going to put that same amount of brake force on the axles as it would if it was loaded. So you have to start earlier and start braking gently so you don't skid or lock up your tires. That's why it's harder to stop, because it doesn't have as much traction as a loaded vehicle, because it doesn't have the weight holding it to the ground. At night, drive slowly enough to see obstacles. Oh, we went over that, okay. When lightly loaded, the very stiff suspension springs and strong brakes give poor traction and make it easy to lock up the wheels. What you need to remember is that lightly loaded vehicles or empty vehicles are harder to stop. Your tractor can jackknife easily. Which vehicle is more likely to jackknife? A lightly loaded or empty vehicle is going to jackknife quickly, right? So it requires a lot more room to downshift and slow the vehicle down. You also must be very careful about driving bobtail tractors. So a bobtail tractor, come back and look at our, where did it go? Maybe I lost it. Oh, there we go. So if you remove the trailer and you're just driving with this power unit, that is a bobtail tractor. Okay, so that's what we're talking about there. So it's harder to stop a bobtail than it is with an empty trailer. It's harder to stop an empty trailer than it is a fully loaded trailer. So the lighter it is, the harder it is to stop. You don't have the traction. You don't even have the weight of the trailer holding your drive axles down to the ground. So you lose even the weight of that empty trailer. So it's going to be harder to stop. In any combination rig, allow lots of following distance and look far ahead so you can brake early. Downshift. We want downshift. We want to use our transmission and stuff to slow us down, so it requires a lot more room. You're not in a car. You can't just run up to the line and hit your brakes like you do in your Mazda Miata. You got to give it room. Don't be caught by surprise and have to make a panic stop. That's when you lock everything up, right? 6.14 railroad highway crossings. Now, we talked about railroad crossings in general knowledge. We're going to talk about the same stuff just in case this is the first time you've seen any of my videos. So railroad highway crossings can also cause problems, particularly when pulling trailers with low underneath clearance. That's what we call a low slung trailer. Okay, these trailers can get stuck on railroad crossings. So when you're talking about, you're going to get a lot of questions about railroad crossings, right? Maybe how far you stop from a railroad, how far you park from a railroad crossing. So I don't remember seeing that in general knowledge. I'm sure it's in there. Maybe I breezed through it and didn't talk about it. But if I'm coming up to a railroad crossing and I have to stop for the train, what is the distance that I stop for this train? I'm not going to be able to highlight it because I don't know if it's here. If I see it, I'll put it in there. But 15 to 50 feet from the nearest rail. If I'm going to park and leave the vehicle close to a railroad crossing 50 or more feet. So make a little note somewhere when you're studying to remember that. 15 to 50 feet. Okay. Low slung units. Remember, you heard that word? You're going to see this a lot. Low slung units. Those are your low boys, your car carriers, your moving vans, possum belly livestock trailers, single axle tractor pulling a long trailer with its landing gear set to accommodate a tandem axle trailer. Yeah, because all railroad crossings are not level, are they? Sometimes they're elevated, so you come up and over. The tractor articulates when it does that. The trailer landing gear comes closer to that point there. So you can get your landing gear caught on those tracks. Make sure your landing gear is fully raised when you're traveling. Low slung trailers, moving vans, low boys, sometimes they're only inches off the ground, and you come across those and you up and over, you're dragging the bottom of the trailer. And if you see some of these, start looking for the marks. You'll see a lot of marks where these trailers have tried to cross them. So very dangerous situation. Anytime you get a question about what are the dangers, I can put it into you different ways. Exited Interstate 55. I started traveling on a dirt road. We know dirt roads that the tires are on the left and the right, and whereas the dirt now, sometimes the center is elevated, right? So it's a little higher in the middle. And I'm driving on a dirt road and I cross a railroad track. I gave you a lot of information there. What am I most concerned about? That railroad crossing. If I get stuck on the dirt road, I'm just stuck on a dirt road. If I get stuck on a railroad crossing, I'm going to hit by a train. So that's what we're worried about. If you do get stuck on a train, what's the first thing you do? Exit the vehicle. They're going to try to trip you up. What's the first thing you do? Call 911? No, that's not the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get out of the truck. And then I'm going to worry about calling somebody. Okay? If for any reason you get stuck on the tracks, get out of the vehicle and away from the tracks. Ooh, that's the first thing you do. Check signposts or signal housing at the crossing for emergency identification numbers, right? So you will have to remember this part here about first thing you do, get out of the truck, check for emergency notification. They may have a railroad crossing, they may have an emergency number, they may have other numbers there that's going to identify which crossing and which track that is. So you call that number BNSF, stuck at track BR9 here in Minnesota. Good, they can get to their conductors to stop that track from moving. If they don't have that number, 911. Do it from outside the truck, away from the vehicle. Away from the vehicle. Don't be close to it. Away from the vehicle. Warn others that you're stuck there. Flag them down. Warn others. Protect the area. But yeah, the first thing you do is get out of the truck. Next thing you do is notify emergency. .1.5. How to prevent trailer skids. So we're talking about jackknifing. I had a little bit of pause there, so I'll get right back to it. What is a jackknife? What does prevent trailer skids? When the rear wheels of the trailer, so this is the trailer, and these tires, if you can see my little dot moving around there, the back here, these tires will engage, and maybe the tractor tires don't engage. That's going to cause a jackknife. That's going to cause your trailer to swing around to the other lane. So how do you correct a jackknife? I talked about it in air brakes. I talked about it in general knowledge. We'll talk about it again because I really need you to understand the differences in the different types of skids and how you correct them, because they're going to confuse you. You're going to try to figure it out. But if you really get a good understanding of it now, you're going to answer this question 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different times, and maybe on every test that you take, general knowledge, air brakes, and combination. So this is called a jackknife, right? That's when the trailer locks up, but the truck isn't, and it starts coming around. What caused the skid? What caused the skid was your trailer tires locking up. How do you recover from that? Your momentum of your tractor is going forward. If you see, you're going forward. If you let off the brakes, the trailer will come back into your lane and just get right in behind you, but you have to release your brakes. That's how you correct a jackknife or a trailer wheel skid. You just release your brakes and keep the momentum. But it's caused by the trailer tires locking up. And you'll get a question in there talking about your trailer brake, your hand brake. So during a jackknife, you should pull your trailer brake. No. Does it make sense? What caused the skid to begin with. What caused the skid to begin with was the tires locking. That means I'm going to reach up there and give more brakes to it. That doesn't make sense at all. That's not how physics work. Momentum is going this way. You let out the brakes and the trailer tires roll, and because you're pulling straight ahead, the trailer's going to get in behind you. So that's what we're talking about here. So I'll read it so that it sounds more professional, maybe not as stepping on their own words like I am, but when the wheels of the trailer lock up, the trailer will tend to swing around. This is more likely to happen when the trailer is empty or lightly loaded. And we know that an empty trailer is harder to stop than a fully loaded trailer, right? So it's going to happen more likely because we're not giving ourselves enough room, we're not downshifting enough, we're just relying on our brakes, and that's when it's more likely to happen, when you don't give yourself enough room for these empty or lightly loaded vehicles. This type of jackknife is often called a trailer jackknife because that's what it's doing. It's swinging around. The procedure for stopping a trailer skid, that's a jackknife, a trailer that originated at the trailer, is recognize the skid. So we don't look in our mirrors enough when we're making turns. Our hands should be following the side that we're turning. If I'm making a left turn, I should be looking left. I'm making a right turn, I should be looking right, looking for my trailer where it's tracking. Also, when I'm hitting my brakes, I hit my brakes, I want to glance. I want to make sure my trailer's staying behind me, or if it's starting to swing out. It's not a matter if it'll happen to you one day. It's a matter of when it's going to happen to you one day. I don't know a driver that's been driving more than a year or two that it hasn't happened to in some small form. It may be just a few inches, but that was enough for them to start looking in their mirrors every single time they hit their brakes. Hopefully you'll learn that early and not have to experience that, but that comes with experience. Recognize the skid. You don't recognize it if you're not looking, right? Seeing it in your mirrors. Recognize the skid by seeing it in your mirrors. Recognize. Skid. Mirrors go together, right? So if we recognize the trailer's coming around, again, stop using the brakes. I gave you an explanation. Now it's going to read it to you here. Release the brakes to get traction back. Do not use the trailer handbrake. That's going to be a question on your test, I promise you. They're going to ask you if you should, or they're going to give you a multiple choice question. Do not use the trailer handbrake, if you have one, to straighten out the rig. What caused the skid? Excessive braking. So I'm going to reach up and add more braking to it? That makes no sense at all. So let's not do that. So remember, do not use the handbrake if you're in a jackknife situation. And it gives you the same explanation, just written better than that I gave you earlier. So that's what it looks like. Now we're moving into 6.1.6, turn wide. When a vehicle goes around a corner, the rear wheels follow a different path. This section you're going to remember, they're going to have some terminology for it, but it doesn't take the same path as the tractor. It takes a shortcut. Off tracking, cheating, but it takes a shortcut. So when it goes around a corner, the rear of the wheels follow a different path than the front wheels. This is called off tracking or cheating. And we can look at figure 6.3 and see what it looks like. Then we'll come back up here to this paragraph. So if you see 6.3, even though the tractor is out here wide, look where these tires are here. It's articulated here. So these tires are being pulled. It's going to take a shortcut. These tires are not going to follow the same path as these tires because of the articulation. So that's what we're talking about, cheating or off tracking. So it takes a shortcut, takes a different path. Longer vehicles off track more because they're further away from the articulation point. So it means it's going to take a bigger shortcut. And that's what we need to know about this. What is off tracking? What is cheating? It means the trailer's taking a different path. We got some diagrams here. We'll look at these diagrams when we come to them. We talked about this one in general knowledge. We haven't talked about this yet, but we will get there. 6.1.7, backing with a trailer. Backing with a trailer. When backing a car, straight truck, or bus, you turn to the top of the steering wheel in the direction you want to go. When backing a trailer, you turn the steering wheel in the opposite direction. Once the trailer starts to turn, you must turn the wheel the other way to follow the trailer. If I want the steering wheel to go left, I turn right. That gets it going right. Once it starts going right, I'm going to have to turn the opposite direction so that the tractor follows the trailer or gets back under the trailer to square it off. We can't just turn. If I turn left, my trailer's going to go right. And it's going to keep going right until I counter steer the other way to recover the trailer and follow it to put it back in a straight squared line, right? So you can't just turn and hold it like you would a car. You're going to have to turn and counter steer. But if I want the back of the, we're talking about the back of the trailer. If I want the back of the trailer to go left, I will turn right. If I want the trailer to go right, I'm going to turn left. But I'm also still going to have to come and follow my trailer again. It's a pivot, bend, follow method. You pivot on your trailer tires. We call it bend, but we're articulating here at the fifth wheel. And once we control it with our steering, so we get it to go that direction, but once it gets going, I have to turn my wheels back to the left on this diagram, because it's going left. I have to turn it back to the left to bring my tractor back around in front of this to make a straight line and square it up. It moves in 3 sections, 1, 2, 3. You can't just look at one part of the vehicle and think it's going to go where you want it to. You have to control it. Don't react to what the trailer does. Make the trailer go where you want it. When backing, you want to look at your path. Look at your line of travel before you begin. Get out and walk around the vehicle. Check your clearance to the sides and overhead, and even underneath. Maybe there's something underneath the vehicle you can run over. In and near the path of your vehicle. Use your mirrors on both sides. Check the outside mirrors on both sides frequently. Get out of the vehicle and re-inspect your path if you're unsure. Back slowly. Always back slowly. Backing fast, nothing ever happens good when you back up fast. Don't get arrogant, don't get cocky. Backing up slow. Back up at idle speed. The automatics, newer trucks have creep modes in them, so it allows you to back up slower. You can control your speed with your clutch with the manual, but back up slow. Correct the drift immediately. What is the drift? If I'm backing in a straight line and I look in my mirrors and I see the trailer on one side or more of the trailer on one side than I do the other, it is drifting. If I see more, it means it's going that way. I'll turn in the same direction to correct that drift. If my trailer's drifting to the right, I'm going to follow it to the right to correct the drift. If I don't correct the drift, it's going to continue to articulate and bend. So we have to keep control of the vehicle. Immediately, as soon as you recognize the drift, you correct it. Pull forward. When backing a trailer, make pull-ups to reposition your vehicle as needed. So backing up is not being perfect every time. Backing up is knowing when to stop and pull up. When you pull up to get yourself a better position. On your driving test, your road test, and your basic control skills test, on the backing maneuvers, on your straight line maneuver, you back up 100 feet through a 100 feet alley, they'll give you one free pull-up. They will? Yes, they will give you one free pull-up. So you back in there, oh, I need to straighten up, use that free pull-up. You still have points to use if you want to, so you can use them as well, but they give you one free before they score you. Why in the world would they give you a free pull-up? They're encouraging pull-ups. They expect you to pull up. It's not about being perfect, it's about doing it safely. And we do it safely by using pull-ups when necessary. After you get your CDL and you pass your test, no one's standing out there at the clipboard grading and judging. If you got to use 10 pull-ups, use 10 pull-ups. Just don't hit anything, right? That hitting things could be a vehicle, a building, property, a person. So yeah, use pull-ups. Make sure, get out and look. If you're not sure, the biggest thing with new students, that it's not funny, but it's one of those things where, why did you run over the cones, or why did you put yourself in this position? I couldn't see. Well, I couldn't. I was looking in the mirror and you couldn't have got out of the truck to see your positioning of your tractor and your trailer to get the big picture view. You couldn't see that. You couldn't get out. You're allowed to get out of the truck and look on your backing maneuvers, even on your test. If you have a helper available, we talked about in general knowledge, but if you have a helper available, one's present, use them. Some of the dumbest incidents I've ever seen is two people sitting in the cab of the truck, the passenger's got his feet up on the dash, the other person's driving, and they back into something. Well, why'd you back into something? Couldn't see. Why'd you let him do that? I wasn't driving. Hey, if you have a helper, get them out in spot. They can see better outside the vehicle than you can, and they have the ability to stop you. Hand signals, when you're using a helper, the number one hand signal you need to agree on is stop. This can mean stop. Maybe this means stop. Maybe this means stop. Whatever means stop between you and your helper, that's what stop means, okay? So let's go over this little test your knowledge section here for section 6.1, test your knowledge. What two things are important to prevent a rollover? Speed, don't crack the whip, that's two, and center of gravity, load it close to the ground and load it center on your trailer, right? That's going to help prevent rollovers. Steer gently, there's a lot of things, but that's only two things. Steer gently, accelerate gently, brake gently. Center of gravity when you load your vehicle. Speed coming into your curves and your turns. Crack the whip effect, right? Don't jerk it. That's all those go into it. So if they want two, that's more than two, but you get the idea. When you turn suddenly while pulling doubles, which trailer is most likely to turn over? Let's go back up and look. This is a set of doubles. This is a set of doubles. This is a set of doubles. And if you look at the gauge up here, this set here is probably 1.2 times more likely to roll over than this one. This set of doubles is almost 1.5 more times likely to roll over than this one. This one is 1.5. This one is 2 times as likely, and this one is 3.5 times as likely. Which trailer is more likely to roll over on a set of doubles? The last trailer. The last trailer is more likely to roll over. Remember that crack the whip effect. Whatever you do in the front is amplified to the rear. So that's the one in the rear is more likely to roll over. Number 3, why should you not use the trailer handbrake to straighten out a jackknifing trailer? We talked about that. What caused the jackknifing trailer? Excessive braking on the trailer. It does not make sense that I'll use my trailer handbrake to add more braking to it. That's what caused it to begin with. I'm not going to add to that. If I have a trailer that's coming around, that's sliding into the other lane because it's getting jackknifing, release your brakes. That's how you correct a jackknife. Release your brakes. What is off-tracking? Off-tracking is when your trailer takes a different path than your tractor. It takes a shortcut. You call it cheating, shortcutting, off-tracking, right? It takes a different path. That's what that means. That's what off-tracking is. It takes a different path than your tractor or your truck. When you back a trailer, you should position your vehicle so you can back in a curved path to the driver's side. Is that true or false? We talked about it in general knowledge, but I haven't talked about it here, so let's see where it's talking about that so I can read it to you. So here it is down here. Whenever you back up with a trailer, try to position your vehicle so that you can back in a straight line. If you must back on a curved path, back to the driver's side so you can see. So that's right here is an example. If we were backing up, and we're not talking about backing trailer, but in this position here, if I'm backing around here in a curved path, how it's articulated here, the trailer's bending to the left over here. I can see out of my window the back of my trailer, just looking out of my window. This one, this is on the driver's side as well, right? So I can see that. This is from the passenger side, or the right side, or the blind side. This is the blind side backing. When I turn here and I'm relying on my mirrors, think about the position of your mirrors. They're here. What can I see? Straight back. I can't see anything. The only thing I can see is the side of this trailer. I can't see the path that's going on. I can't see anything. So you always back from the driver's side. That is the curved path. If you're backing on a curved path, you back from the driver's side because I can see better. The right side is the blind side. So When you back a trailer, you position your vehicle so you can back in a curved path to the driver's side. That is true. What if that statement said I should pack to the right side? What would you say? You say it's false then, right? What type of trailers can get stuck on railroad crossings? All kinds of trailers can get stuck on railroad crossings. Which ones are more likely? Remember that word I told you about that we highlighted up at the beginning here when we're talking about different trailers? There's railroad crossings. There's that word, low slung units. Examples will be low boys, car carriers, things of that nature. Single axle trailers pulling long. Those are what have a tendency to get stuck on railroad crossings. Low slung trailers. Okay. There'll be more questions in there, section at a time. Just stick with one section at a time, and you're going to do just fine. Remember that the highlighted areas, go back and look at this. Read the whole thing. Pay special attention to the areas that I've highlighted. If you got to bring it in here and pause it at each one, or you can download the driver's manual yourself, or you can have a manual from your DMV, your driver's license division, and match it up with the page. These pages are going to match up. Like I said, the only difference that I've really seen in these is when you dim your headlights in general knowledge. Pay attention to your state's laws and regulations, statute when it comes to that. We'll move on to the next section. We're going to start next section at 6.2, combination vehicle air brakes.